has been estimated to be at least several 100 million years. Not only vivid, but also a display of resilience. As everyone was feeling incredulous, suddenly a voice of inquiry echoed from the sky. "It looks like it's going to rain soon." The villager who never believed in these things. I also feel a heaviness in my heart. We can only let everyone finish work and return to the village. Because I truly have no confidence in myself. The villager returning home brought 2 dishes and a bottle of wine. Found Jayasai, who has spent a lifetime dealing with stones in the village, talking about the strange things encountered today. Jayasai listened and seemed to contemplate. He remembered the legend about the dragon sutra that his master had told him before. It is said that it was a true dragon from ancient times. Make sure not to provoke them. Don't provoke disaster. The villagers found Jayasiu's claims increasingly absurd. I find it a bit hard to believe. Jayasai saw him like this and said no more. Still advise him to never touch him. 2 people are talking. Suddenly, the door was pushed open with a bang. The wife of the villager at the door is named Ran. He still has the mind to drink here. The family's hens and ducks have all died. I don't know what's going on. Everything was fine in the morning. The villager frowned upon seeing this. At first, I thought there might be a plague. But if you think about it, what kind of plague is this that is so powerful? The chicken and the duck have both died. And from what his wife said, there's something off about this house. The villagers didn't care about drinking this time, hurrying home while chatting excitedly. At first glance, only then did I realize the seriousness of the situation. All the livestock at the villagers' home. They all lay on the ground. Not only that, this situation has occurred in every household in the village. This matter is indeed quite strange. Is it really as Jayasai said? It provoked the dragon spirit. The village was noisy all night without any resolution. The next morning, bright and early, the couple was awakened by the noise outside the door. A large group of villagers blocked the entrance. Listen to what they mean. They understood that their actions yesterday were wrong. So many poultry have died in the village now. Even the crops in the fields have withered. How are we supposed to live like this? This is all their fault for offending the mountain god. So I rushed over early in the morning to demand accountability. The loss in the village. We need to make them pay. The villager looked at their appearance. It's like each person has their own spit to share. They all want to drown him. I can't stand it anymore. Just assure the villagers. They will definitely find a way to solve this matter. The fellow villagers also know. This matter won't be resolved. I will become a sinner for eternity. But the fellow villager responded quickly. Actually, he feels uncertain inside. In the end, there was no way out. I found Master Jayasi again. But Master Jayasi didn't know what to do. Only the villagers can bury that stone dragon first, then offer him some turkey and wild boar as sacrifices. He wasn't idle either. We can only treat a dead horse as if it's alive, based on the methods left by our ancestors. Found a flat, large stone slab. Carved a plaque to gift to Long. The inscription above is from when he was with his master. A poem praising the divine dragon. You wouldn't believe it. Since the establishment of this dragon stele, strange occurrences never happened in the village again. And that stone tablet, always staying in this mountain called Guanhejai. Later, I heard from the older generation. The stone dragon is a celestial dragon that has committed a wrongdoing. Crushed beneath this great mountain. Over time, it formed a dragon vein. However, it's impossible to know whether this legend is true or not. But this stone dragon and the dragon stele, there are indeed traces to follow. The deceased son suddenly sat up from the coffin. Has also become very fond of eating chicken. All the chickens in the village were devoured by him. This event took place in a small village in Jumadian city, Henan. There is a family with the surname Lin in the village. Their son Lin Dolly has died. This is the only seedling in the family. The white-haired person sends off the black-haired person. The elderly couple's hair had turned white overnight. The corpse lay in the house for 3 days. On the day of the funeral, 4 strong men carried the coffin toward the cemetery. But just then, strange things started to happen. The coffin shook violently, and there were also knocking sounds coming from inside the coffin. This scared the few people carrying the coffin. What happened? In the village, such matters are usually handled by a few people. This is the first time encountering such a situation. Not knowing what to do at that moment, hastily abandoned the coffin, went to hide on the side. Lindala's parents watched this scene, also scared quite a bit. Then the coffin swayed for a moment. The lid of the coffin above. Suddenly he was knocked to the ground. Lindali, who lay in the coffin for 3 days, was dead, but suddenly sat down, sitting silently in the coffin. It's been about 10 minutes. The people around watched this scene. None dared to step forward. Not long after, Lindali suddenly stood up. One foot stepped out of the coffin, slowly walking in the direction of home. Everyone felt it was very strange. Lindali drowned. It was pulled up after being dead for a day. No matter what, it's impossible to bring him back to life. No matter what, Lindali has survived. This is a fact. Ever since that day, Lindali is like a big girl, hiding inside the house, unable to face others. Lin's mother repeatedly called him to go out for dinner. He remained completely still, squatting on the kang, in a dark corner that never sees the sunlight. This sun can't keep going on like this. It was close to noon that day. Lin's mother asked him what he wanted to eat. This time, Lin Dolly finally reacted, said they wanted to eat chicken. At that time, the conditions were already poor. My son wants to eat. The old lady had no choice. Just killed the old hen I had raised for several years. Take it to him when it's ready. I didn't expect that in the corner. Lin Dolly's sudden outbursts. This time, seeing the chicken was like a mouse spotting a cat. Excitedly, he pounced. He grabbed the freshly cooked stewed chicken in one swift motion. Back to the corner, devour it with abandon. Lin's mother looked at him like this. I want to remind him to eat slowly. But Lin Dolly suddenly turned around, showed a fierce expression towards Lin Mu. It was like a demon coming from hell. A few days later, he ate all the chickens at home. But Lin Dolly wants to eat chicken every day. Lin's mother could only go to the street and buy him a few. What kind of family could raise him to be such a troublemaker? Slowly, Lin's mother no longer settled for him. Let him eat something else. Ki Linda Lai is not just about chicken. Don't move anything else. No one is allowed to get close to him. But a few days later, the villagers noticed something was off. Almost every household has lost chickens. On this night, Liu Kaindong from the village woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I noticed a noise coming from my yard. Quickly swung the flashlight. Immediately frightened. Suddenly a blurry figure appeared, holding their chicken. They were so engrossed in cutting that they lost track of everything else. So, caught by someone, he vanished in the blink of an eye. No matter how hard he searched, I couldn't find that person at all. Moreover, this situation, almost every household has encountered it. Let's talk about Lindala's home. Strange things also started to happen. In the past few days, Lindala's room, slowly filled with a foul smell. Every time the old couple enters the house, it will be so overwhelming that it will make your eyes water. It smelled like the stench of a rotting animal carcass. But the old lady in this house cleans every day. Where does this foul smell come from? This left the old couple quite puzzled. In fact, how could the old couple not see it? This child is clearly acting strangely. It's just that my heart doesn't want to believe it. After some discussion, they decided to ask someone to take a look. Soon, Lin's father invited the Huang Da Zion from the neighboring village, awakened by the foul odor that hit my nose. Let him have an idea in his heart. Suddenly, I started to curse at Lin Dolly. He is an animal, harming the neighbors. Let him get lost. Lin Dolly looked at the gentleman. Not a word was spoken. Just a pair of eyes cruelly staring at him. This time the gentleman is also angry. If you don't behave again, I will make sure he can never approach me again. At this moment, Lin Dolly finally reacted. He lowered his head more and more, suddenly leaned back. The body collapsed, lying on the kang, completely still. Clearly he is dead. Seeing my son dead, the elderly couple suddenly felt a bit flustered. But the next scene, it made them even more heartbroken. Lin Dolly has been squatting in that spot these past few days. At this moment, a large pit appeared. The pit was filled with chicken bones and feathers. It's simply reeking with stench. While Lin Fu was changing Lin Dolly's clothes, he discovered that his body had long since decayed beyond recognition. The entire body was covered in decaying corpse spots. It seems to have long since died. The Lin family held another funeral, and this time the elderly couple also had Lin Dolly cremated. Later, according to the teacher, it was obvious that Lin Dolly was possessed by something. The explanation has returned. But what exactly is it? The gentleman did not state it clearly either. As the saying goes, one should not swallow 3 times without striking. Do not eat the April fish. This animal waiting for slaughter must not be killed. But the man in today's story, not only grateful for the animals awaiting slaughter on the mountain, and skinned him to the bone, stew into a pot of soup, letting my pregnant wife eat. This is a big trouble now. This incident took place in Heilongjiang before the founding of the nation. At that time, the northeast region was still covered with primeval forests. There are often many roads blocking the path on the mountain. There are also schools of fish and shrimp in the river. It's simply breathtaking. The people there rely on the mountains for their livelihood. Though not wealthy or noble, life has been quite comfortable and pleasant. There was a man named Sun Sanpao in the village at the foot of the mountain. This person is a master hunter, almost all year round in the mountains. The shotgun in my hand, it's simply a perfect shot. The animals killed could probably pile up into a small hill. Once upon a day, Sun Sanpao arrived in the mountains early again. Not long after, they hunted down a pregnant doe. Actually, at this time, very few people go hunting in the mountains anymore. Autumn has just begun, marking the season for animal births. The locals there basically all respect the mountain god. But Sun Sanpao just refused to believe. It seems like this guy is addicted to hunting animals. I feel uncomfortable all over if I don't go up the mountain for a day. That day he was just like usual. All the bullets are spent. Reluctantly returned home, and many of the wild rabbits and pheasants he killed. He found it too troublesome and didn't pick it up. Carrying only that doe, he returned home. To put it simply, he just enjoys the feeling of hunting deer, not feeling that there's anything wrong with myself. Sun Sanpao is an only child. His father died a long time ago, now living together with my own mother and wife. The old lady couldn't help but complain as soon as she saw him, tell him to stop wandering around. This daughter-in-law is about to give birth. In the blink of an eye, I watched him hit the returning doe. Suddenly my heart was filled with mixed emotions. This old lady speaks every time she sees someone. Tell him not to shoot the doe with fawns. But this Sun Sanpao always has his left ear filled with oil. Annoyed by the noise, she quickly turned around and went inside. His wife is about to give birth. He also strongly opposed Sun Sanpao going hunting. Sun Sanpao always felt it was nothing special. These past 10 years have been spent like this. Little did he know that it was because of the sins he had accumulated over the past decade. Almost cost his child's life. As soon as Sun Sanpao finished preparing the dough, I picked the best meat for my wife to eat again. It's about time to sleep. At that time, there were not many recreational activities for the villagers. Lying in bed early, getting ready to sleep. Seeing that his wife was about to bring up the matter of him not going hunting in the mountains again, Sun Sanpao quickly found something else to do. Block my wife's words. I definitely won't go again. Soon fell into a deep sleep. But early the next morning, he prepared the hunting rifle. Without looking back, they headed up the mountain. The old lady looked anxious. "Your wife is about to give birth. Why are you still going up the mountain?" The old lady saw that he was completely unmoved. "I can only remind him to come back early." Sun Sanpao replied with a few casual remarks. He plunged straight into the mountains. But after a while, he sensed something was wrong. The silence in this mountain is terrifying. It can be said that I haven't seen a living thing at all, not even a single one flying in the sky. This made him inexplicably a bit anxious. Suddenly I remembered the legends about the mountain god that the elders often spoke of. This is probably the mountain god's lifelong love. There is no time to think too much. He hurriedly ran down the mountain, still not at the doorstep. His cold sweat began to pour out. I only saw outside my own yard at the gate. Even the roof is crawling with various wild beasts from the mountains, unlike the timid appearance he showed in the past. Today they each looked at me with unfriendly expressions. Sun Sanpao has hunted for so many years. Nature is not afraid of them. He raised the shotgun. I just want to take them down one by one. The elderly lady quickly ran out upon hearing the noise. "Hurry, stop him before he causes any more harm." Even my own daughter-in-law is difficult to handle, and it is very likely related to this group of things. Sun Sanpao was taken aback when the old lady said this. Suddenly felt a bit guilty. If this is because I caused the death of my wife and child, then he is truly burdened with deed sin. He probably doesn't care about anything else. Quickly followed my mother into the house. It must be said that these things today are indeed strange. Fearless, they all stood at the entrance with resentful expressions. This made him even more uneasy. As soon as I entered the room, I saw my wife lying on the bed, crying out in agony, and the midwife, Aunt Liu, not knowing what to do beside it, frantically sweating profusely. This Aunt Liu is not an ordinary person. In her youth, she was a shamaness who performed divine dancing. Whenever there is a difficult issue in the village, everyone looks to her. If even Aunt Liu can't solve this is likely to be a tough challenge. Sun Sanpao looked at his wife in agony, her heart-wrenching pain evident. "I just want to kneel before Aunt Liu." Aunt Liu also knows. This must definitely be related to the group outside. Sun Sanpao angrily wanted to go out and take revenge on them again. Aunt Liu sighed helplessly. "You mustn't act impulsively again. It's something you can't do anything about." The fate of Sun Sanpao, They can't deal with you. So it's only trouble with Zaiwa." Sun Sanpao listened. It was also a wave of regret. Suddenly, he pulled out a knife from nowhere. One person does the work. One person takes the responsibility, even if it means ending oneself. He also wants to save his wife and children. The old woman watched her only child about to do something. Where is it suspicious? Quickly he ran over, grabbing them while wiping his nose. Suddenly, she turned and knelt down with a thud in front of Aunt Liu. Pleased she must save them, mother and son. Aunt Liu saw her crying in deep sorrow. It's not easy for her to raise the child alone. Seeing that the Sun family's daughter-in-law is not giving birth, I'm afraid it will be a case of one body, two lives. He let out a sigh. He spoke as if he had made up his mind. If it's meant to be, then so be it. Then she picked up a basket she had brought with her. He lifted the red cloth that was covering it. Inside was actually a newly born baby. Upon closer inspection, the child had long since lost their breath. It seems it was gone from the moment it was born. Aunt Liu wrapped the dead infant in red cloth. 3 eggs and a piece of yellow paper were added inside again. After wrapping it up, it was handed over to Granny's son. They said to take it out and throw it to the animals outside. This way they will think it's a child of the Sun family. Then we can deceive them. Can't be fooled. There really is no way. The old lady did not hesitate after listening. Picked up the burden, waved in front of those animals, carefully placed it at the door, afraid they won't believe it. Kneeling down, crying with snot and tears, said that their child is already gone. Let them take it away. This matter is settled. The old lady's expression was one of utter grief. It really isn't put on. Seeing her so sad, a fox hesitated for a moment before running out. He picked up the bundle and headed into the mountains. The other animals followed along. The amazing thing is, they just left a little while ago. The sound of a child crying came from inside the house. The child has finally been born successfully. Aunt Liu is considered the savior of this family. The Sun family is certainly worth millions. Prepared a generous gift of gratitude. And that deceased child, the Sun family will have to set up memorial tablets for their children to honor. It can also be considered a gratitude for his life-saving grace. Sun Sanpao can no longer go hunting in the mountains for the rest of his life. Otherwise, if we anger the mountain god again, the mountain god would never forgive their entire family, the elderly and children in this village. Suddenly, everyone fell into a deep sleep overnight. But the reason behind it, even more perplexing. This incident took place in Yunnan province in the 1980s, in a Hani village called Peace. Early that morning, a large crowd anxiously gathered in front of the village chief's house. They talked about their own elderly and children in a lively manner. I haven't woken up since I fell asleep last night. This news has also left people in a state of complete disarray. It turns out this has appeared in every household, the phenomenon of the elderly and children being hard to wake up. I've also been to that hospital. The clinic also checked it. No matter what I do, I can't wake them up. Every day is spent sleeping. The village chief's expression gradually became serious. He knows in his heart this is likely to have provoked some evil spirit, but he didn't dare to speak carelessly. After all, in those years, speaking recklessly comes with a price. But this problem won't be solved in a day. Every day is a hidden danger. The village chief let out a helpless sigh. He called for his son. Go find old Hay in the ancestral hole on the back mountain. Only he can handle this. The old black that the village chief mentioned. He is the guardian of the village ancestral hall. Lao He used to be a bandit before the liberation, has a heart of stone, and is ruthless. After the liberation, I also served in the military. But because of his irritable temper, in the end I can only live in the village. And the elders in the village say, 1 year he fell seriously ill. After waking up, my mood has improved. Later, he even requested to guard the ancestral hall. Unknowingly, I have mastered some techniques, can see some strange things for the villagers. The village chief's son soon found Lao He. I told him about the situation in the village. He also found it strange. So he followed the village chief's son, arrived at the village with a few children, the home of someone in a deep sleep. When Lao He saw the symptoms of these children, suddenly he furrowed his brows tightly. He then carefully examined the children's bodies. I opened my eyes and looked deep within. I probably have an idea in my heart. He turned around and asked the anxious adult behind him, "Is everyone else in the village the same way?" The village chief's son does not hide either. Gave a brief overview of the village situation. The old man and the child, including some physically weak adults, they all have the symptoms of being in a deep sleep. After the village chief's son finished speaking, Lao He became more certain of his thoughts. He didn't say anything more. Just let me find a few people to go to the cemetery on the back mountain. The villagers watched him in confusion. What does the village matter have to do with the graveyard? Some young people even thought he was just being mysterious. Finally, we quickly arrived at the cemetery on the back mountain. The cemetery in Ping Village is backed by a mountain and faces a river. It really is a location with excellent feng shui. Moreover, the ancestors of this village have been buried here for generations. So some people think he is being cryptic. It's not without reason. Even the village head's son is a bit skeptical. The people in this village are in a deep sleep. What does this graveyard have to do with it? Lao He completely ignored everyone, standing in front of the cemetery. He reached out his left hand and carefully pinched the garlic sprout. As the fingers sway, Lao He seems to have found a way to fix the problem. Lion Wang instructed everyone to do as he said. Let them be among the graves. Find grass on a grave, a tombstone that looks different from the others. No one dared to be negligent. Sure enough, it wasn't long before someone discovered the problem. Lion Wang called everyone over to take a look. As soon as a few people ran over, when he saw the scene before him, everyone gasped in surprise. The grass growing directly on the grave is indeed unique, and that grave mound seemed to have a large dark hole dug out of it. Looks very much like a saint. Lao He walked closer to take a look. Only then did he tell everyone, the weight of this graveyard is too heavy. It should have caught fire. The reason the people in this village are like this now, it's all because of the fire in this grave. And how was this fire formed? It's because it was buried in the wrong favorable position, thus leading to death without surrender. Years later, it will become rigid. Over time, it will absorb the surrounding vitality, begin the refinement process. Moreover, the elderly and children are already physically weak, will be the first to get hurt. As time goes on, there will be a risk to life. Lao He finished speaking. Just look up at the sky. At that time, the sun was high. That thing doesn't dare to come out and create characters. It's a good thing. He immediately instructed everyone. Hurry up and dig out that thing from the grave, even if a few people are unwilling. But for the elderly and children at home, they all started digging in earnest. Before long, a few people dug open the grave. After smashing the coffin lid, the corpse inside was revealed. Out of curiosity, Several people quickly leaned forward to take a look. Upon seeing this, suddenly they were scared out of their wits. Inside lay a lifelike corpse. It looks like there are no signs of decay at all, and judging by his attire, considering the material of the coffin, this person has been dead for decades. For so many years, the physical body has remained incorruptible. It's really a bit scary. Lao He had long anticipated the situation inside, hastily instructed the young ones. Seize the moment while you can. Pull that thing out. Everyone is looking at this somewhat eerie thing. Everyone started to back down. But when I think of the little ones at home, still hardened my heart. Pull that thing out. When that thing comes out, Lao He told everyone to disperse. Put it under the sun. Sunbathe for a full 2 hours. Then he found a knife again. Let the monster bleed. The strange thing is, the blood of that thing after decades. It's still so vibrant. Lao He saw that the blood had mostly flowed out. So they had someone fetch a stick, sharpened peach wood stick, picked it up and threw it fiercely towards. The heart of that thing was pierced. To a moment, the appearance of that thing changed. Earth-shattering changes. It was as if the decades of blood had come alive. The old thing quickly rotted away. Soon the flesh and blood will rot away completely. Gradually turned into a skeleton. The people present watched this scene. Everyone was so scared that they couldn't speak. Fortunately, old Hayes said, "Finally dealt with this monster. But this has always been considered by people as the location of a grave in a feng shui auspicious site. This is the place where their family raises corpses. Later, the village chief took precautions just in case. Soon people were organized there, planted many trees. No one dared again after that. Bury the old man there, speaking of the elderly and children in the village. Since this thing was eliminated, everyone suddenly woke up. From then on, it never happened again. Such a situation. I don't know about your place. Is there such a saying? If one disappears, they will face numerous calamities and illnesses. The family will find ways to shift. Some will acknowledge their adoptive father. Some will order dull devices. Some would look for a substitute. Block disaster for yourself. One evening, I am in front of my grandpa, waiting to hear him tell me a story. Then I heard a sound, the sound of the horn blaring. Yu Yi's distant voice echoed. Before long, the funeral procession also walked past Grandpa's house, walking towards the cemetery on the western hill. It turns out that the old man from the Zhao family in the village has passed away. Today marks the beginning of spring. At that time, the village was holding a funeral. Still quite particular. Sometimes it's a blow, sometimes it's a hit. Grandpa saw someone younger than himself, old Zhao, who's not so small anymore. But first, take a step forward. One can't help but marvel at the impermanence of life. But then I thought again. In his 80s now. It's enough to break even. Very open-minded. Not taking life and death too seriously. I grew up by my grandfather's side since I was little. The feelings for Grandpa are very deep. Upon hearing Grandpa talk about life and death, I just feel inexplicably nervous. At that time, I had no concept of such things. I just wish my grandfather would love me, always accompany oneself. Continuing, Grandpa told me a story. Grandpa said his life was exchanged for Zio Jai's. And this little Jai who changed his fate. It's not even a person. This incident happened when Grandpa was 10 years old. Once upon a day, his father took him. I went to a friend's house in the neighboring village. Grandpa only realized after entering the house. It turned out that the family had just lost a daughter. The age seems to be about the same as mine. Listening to the conversation between two adults, it also feels like I understand a bit. If this girl doesn't die, in the future she should be my wife. At that time, most in the village were still unmarried. The adults at home arranged a betrothal, still very common. Grandpa only found out at that time. My parents had already arranged a childhood betrothal for me. Is the girl who has just died in front of us. Understood these. Couldn't help but stare at the girl's body lying flat on the kang. I looked a little longer, even feeling a bit anxious inside. They say the girl died from an illness. The body doesn't seem to have changed much, as if asleep. Her face was extremely pale, but it can still be faintly seen. The girl is alive. At that time, Grandpa still didn't know what death represented. There isn't much sadness in my heart. Grandpa's father exchanged a few pleasantries with that man. I took Grandpa home. It's just because of this small difference. Grandpa almost lost his life. After returning home that night, Grandpa went to bed early, but he slept until midnight, but had a strange dream. I dreamed of the girl I saw during the day. Unknowingly, I found myself standing by my bed. She said she's Grandpa's daughter-in-law. A person feels lonely and afraid below. Let Grandpa go down to accompany her. What else is there to say? I am a person from my grandfather's family. Even in death, I will be the ghost of Grandpa's house. In those days. Everyone knows that. The thoughts are quite traditional. But that girl is 2 years older than Grandpa. It seems like it's decided to be with Grandpa. So I was determined to take Grandpa with me. Grandpa originally thought she was a ghost. I was a bit scared at that time, but seeing her small, helpless, and fearful appearance, Grandpa's heart also became sad. This kind of thought shifts. Grandpa felt as if he suddenly sat up from bed. The body also feels light and airy. It feels like I can take off at any moment. See Grandpa getting up. The girl stepped forward and took her grandfather's hand. Grandpa unconsciously followed her, walking in one direction, but when she looked back, she realized one's own body, still sleeping well on the kang. Later, Grandpa recalled that, at that moment, she couldn't move at all. I can only let that girl lead the way forward. But what happened next? Grandpa has no memory of it at all. When she woke up again, but found her parents, Jenkson stood anxiously by the bedside, continuously calling her name. At that moment, she finally understood. She has been unconscious in bed for 2 days. If it weren't for her parents inviting the village blind man to call back her soul, I'm afraid she really went along. It seems. The blind man has figured everything out. If we don't find a solution soon, this girl will come again in the future. It will be a serious problem then. And her suggestion, make a substitute for Grandpa. The next thing that happened. Grandpa did not participate. I later heard my parents talk about it, under the guidance of the blind elder, in the image of Grandfather. He had someone make a wooden figure nearly the same height as him. He stuck Grandpa's hair onto the wooden man again, wearing Grandpa's clothes. I also put a little on Grandpa's shoes. Then she came to the girl's house again, talked about Grandpa's condition. They asked them to open the girl's coffin, put the wooden figure and the girl's body together. It is said that this is how Miss Wooden Doll is treated. Substituted for Grandpa and went down. Married her. From now on, she will organize that girl. The two families then erected a gravestone for the girl again. The names of the girl and her grandfather were engraved on the stone tablet. It turned into a joint burial tomb. From that day on, Grandpa slowly started to get better, as turned back into that lively child. Later his parents took him along, going to the blind man's house again, through a clay statue of a deity to become a godmother. He said he could no longer call her Miss, changed his name to Da Shun. From that day on, that girl never appeared again. Moreover, Grandpa is now over 80 years old. There has been no issue with my body. In Grandpa's view, that's all just your own substitute. The young lady shielded herself from all misfortunes. The boy grew up to 5 years old, suddenly recalled memories of my past life, still crying and shouting to find their former parents. This incident took place in Giju province during the 1970s, in an ordinary Dong ethnic village. At that time, it caused quite a stir. Once upon a time, there was a family with the surname Wu in the village. There is a 5-year-old son at home named Wu Peng. That day, his mom was sewing clothes. He suddenly ran in front of his mom. He said earnestly, he was not from this family in his past life. Moreover, they detailed their previous home address. My surname is Long. There were also the previous family circumstances. What was said was so vivid and detailed. When his mother heard her son say such strange things, but I was scared to death, and to have raised these children for so many years. Suddenly said they wanted to find another dad and mom. It's not easy for her either. He suddenly pulled Wu Peng into his arms. Tell him not to say such things again. Can't tell anyone. Wu Peng saw his mother's reaction was so strong. It seems like I understand something. From then on, it was never mentioned again. In the blink of an eye, the child grew up to be 8 years old. Wu Peng has also started first grade in elementary school. But it's the first day of school. The child, however, was not happy. I have been lost in thought. Mr. Zhang, the attentive teacher, also noticed that the child was acting a bit unusual, not paying attention in class, staring at him. He seems to have something to say. Teacher Zhang didn't pay him any mind either. But when class was over, Wu Peng arrived at Teacher Zhang's office door, peering in cautiously. Teacher Zhang looked at his nervous expression. He called him in. Ask him what exactly the matter is. Not paying attention in class. Wu Peng saw Teacher Zhang asking him, without hesitation, speak out the words in your heart. Said they knew him in a past life. I used to teach him before. See, Teacher Zhang doesn't believe. He also revealed that he is from Desert Town. Even the villagers know. Teacher Zhang was skeptical at first. I still want to scold him a bit, but he suddenly realized. The child is actually speaking Chinese, and it's the local dialect from their village. This is different from what the current Dongzhou village is saying. Wu Peng noticed that Teacher Zhang seemed a bit hesitant. He hurriedly said that he had evidence. One can prove their past life's identity. He then showed it to Teacher Zhang. The red birthmark behind my ear. It looks like a seal. There are 4 characters above. Longjangui. Teacher Zhang saw this. I was also incredibly shocked. He knows Longjangui from this wooden bridge. Then why does this child have this behind their ear? He couldn't make sense of it for a moment. Thought that the seal was stamped by someone. He rubbed it hard with his hand a couple of times. I didn't expect Wu Peng to scream in pain. It seems that this stamp birthmark is real. Wu Peng saw that he still didn't believe. He mentioned that his previous life name was Long Qingliang. Teacher Zhang has also taught him. Hearing this, Teacher Zhang's hairs stood on end. 8 years ago, there really was such a child. Teacher Zhang finally started to believe his words. He quickly took advantage of the opportunity. He hopes that Teacher Zhang can help him find his parents from his past life. Teacher Zhang looked at the child's pitiful eyes. I truly can't bear to refuse. Moreover, I am a bit curious about this kind of thing. I want to know whether this is true or not. Really, that would be incredible. He immediately agreed to Wu Peng. He said he would like to see his parents from before. We'll talk to them. Time passed like this. Teacher Zhang is at the school gate. Met Wu Peng's current mother. Gently expressed the child's thoughts. Said they want to take the child back to have a look. Otherwise, this child will be thinking about this all day long and won't study properly. Wu Peng's mother also knows the son's thoughts. He could only sigh helplessly and say, "Let him go, it's not impossible. But even if it is true, we can't leave the child at his house." Wu Peng saw that his mother agreed, excitedly ran over and hugged him. Also promised myself, definitely won't stay there. Damn it, that's why Teacher Zhang took him there. After walking for 2 hours on the mountain path, Wu Peng relied on the memories of his past life. He arrived at the village where he used to live, a village called Dingxi. Along the way, Wu Peng spoke in his hometown dialect. I shared my past experiences with Teacher Zhang. This made Teacher Zhang feel even more incredulous. After entering the village, Wu Peng was also quite familiar with the route, walking on the winding village path. Very quickly, he arrived in front of a house. That is his home from his past life, and Teacher Zhang recognized him too. That is indeed Long Zhangwu's home. Wu Peng looked at his old home. Heartfelt excitement is hard to conceal. Suddenly, he pushed the door open and ran in. Excitedly shouted towards the 3 people in the room. Everyone hasn't reacted yet. He suddenly lunged into a woman's embrace, shouting "Mom" loudly. The woman looked at the completely unfamiliar child in front of her. A look of bewilderment. Wu Peng saw them like this. No need to rush. He turned to his grandmother and explained the reason for the matter. Talking about one's own death. Didn't his grandmother stamp a mark on his bottom? Now that chapter is right behind my ear. He approached the old man to show him. The old lady hurriedly leaned closer. It really is. This moment, the whole family burst into tears. The old lady hugged the child tightly. It all started 8 years ago. 8 years ago, the child fell seriously ill. At that time, I ran to many hospitals but couldn't get better. The once healthy child is deteriorating day by day. The old lady suddenly recalled hearing someone mention before, "If only we could leave a mark on the child. It may lead to the next life." At that time, I was also trying it out with a hopeful attitude. Took out the child's father's seal. It was placed on the child's bottom. I never expected this to be real. The old lady finished speaking, already in tears. A family also found the child who had died 8 years ago, happy with a runny nose, a handful of mucus. From then on, Wu Peng had 2 homes, and the 2 families would interact like relatives. The villagers knew about this after. All are amazed and astonished. Later, it was unclear who leaked the information. Many experts also came at that time, specifically went to the village where Wu Peng was located to investigate. I unexpectedly discovered a village in that area. Only a dozen people still retain memories of their past lives. I don't know whether what happened afterward is true or not. However, Wu Peng found his parents. It remains an unsolved mystery to this day. Manlu and baby Tiku. As I got closer, I never expected to witness such a horrifying scene, but the truth behind it is, it sent a chill down his spine. This took place in the mid-1980s, in a small village in Jian City, Jiangxi Province. Lai Zongbing from the village was working as an electrician in town at that time. Due to the long journey, every day I have to walk several kilometers to get home. By the time I got home, it was already dark. I remember it was just the beginning of autumn. One afternoon, Lai Zongbing walked on the path home. In the distance, one can hear the trees on the western hillside. A few sounds of a baby crying can be heard. He didn't find it strange at the time, because in this small grove, in the past, there were often people who discarded stillborn children. Moreover, those that were discarded were all born with diseases, even if there are occasionally those who haven't completely died out. Bringing it back won't help it survive. He didn't want to meddle at that time. At that time, raising a whole family was still a bit stressful. But just then, Lai Zongbing suddenly heard the sound of the baby crying. It became increasingly mournful, as if a person is on the brink of death. A helpless wail emerged. It sounds very uncomfortable. He felt a bit anxious. Worry that there are beasts harming the children. Quickly ran towards the direction of the baby's cries. Not yet close. I saw a familiar figure. Quickly dashed into the woods. Ran away quickly in another direction. Lai Zongbing found it strange. Why did that person run away as soon as they saw me? But the next second, the bloodstains on the road made his heart feel heavy. A sense of foreboding gripped my heart. Could that person just now be? Lai Zongbing dared not think too deeply. Quickly walked closer to take a look. I discovered a large pool of uncoagulated blood on the ground. It looks like it just leaked. Lai Zongbing's heart skipped a beat. Carefully looked behind the big rock. At first glance, it scared him quite a bit. Only see behind the big rock. At this moment, a baby girl's corpse lies there. It looks like it has been abandoned. But strangely, the infant girl's chest had been pierced by something. The heart has already vanished. Lai Zongbing watched this scene, feeling incredibly heavy-hearted. He clearly heard the child's cries just now. That means the child was still alive just now, but had their heart taken away alive. It has become like this. What kind of heart is this that is so cruel? Only someone devoid of conscience could do such a thing. Lai Zongbing suddenly remembered the silhouette that just ran away quickly. That person is Zhang San from the village. Usually he looks quite good to others. How can there be such a person? Lai Zongbing, filled with anger, they could only bury the baby girl with crushed stones, not to the point of gluttony in the wilderness, carried away by a beast. Moreover, there is no evidence to support oneself. You can't just go out and say anything. And so this matter passed. Not long after, a strange incident happened in the village. About a month later, the women in the village would tell everyone they met. Zhang San's son, Zhang Xiaofai, who has been foolish for over 10 years. Recently, I don't know what's going on. It suddenly got better. Before, I went to many places but couldn't find a cure. At first, no one believed. After all, it is a village. It's obvious at a glance. You know what? Zhang San's son has changed a lot now. Before, it was obvious to anyone with discernment that something was wrong. But now it is a village. Now it is like this. No one would associate him with a fool. Moreover, this Zhang San is happy because his son has recovered. Every day, he takes his son for a stroll around the village, deliberately showing it to others. It is strange that child always clutches their chest when speaking. The women in the village saw that he was normal again. Everyone is happy for Zhang San. Some just want to touch the child. I haven't encountered him yet. The child fled to the side with a face full of terror, speaking strange words loudly. Tell them to leave him alone. Don't dig out his heart. You bad people." This sentence startled everyone present. His father looked even more embarrassed. However, the child has improved no matter what. From now on, no one will dare to laugh any more. He has a foolish son now. The child shouted a couple of times. No one cared about the others any more. Holding their chest, they quickly ran back home. But since then, he hardly comes out any more. Every day I crouch in the corner shivering, muttering continuously under their breath, "Don't dig out his heart." And that child has not been attending school, still staying at home all day. Later, Lai Zongping heard someone say, "This child will be fine." It is because Jiang San heard a folk remedy from somewhere. They said they were looking for a living person's heart. Feed it to his son. His son will be fine. But looking at his current situation, it seems he is very afraid that others will dig out his heart. I don't know whose consciousness this child truly has, Zhang Xiaofai. It's still that deceased baby girl. Those who have lived in the countryside definitely know. If a family member gets a fishbone stuck for no reason, or suddenly felt unwell, at this time the elder in the house would stand a chopstick upright. This incident happened in the year my cousin was in her second year of high school. At that time, she would attend evening study sessions every night. It was almost 10 o'clock when we got home. That day she went home from school as usual. A person is walking up the stairs. Her home is on the 5th floor. I used to live in an old-style neighborhood, so every night I have to climb the stairs to go back. That day, she had just climbed to the 4th floor. I found the light in the hallway was broken. In the distance, I caught a glimpse of Zhu Yai downstairs at her home. It seems to be standing at its own doorstep. Zhu Yai can be said to have watched her grow up. So as soon as I saw her, cousin asked with concern, "Zhu Yai, it's so late. Why are you still standing here?" It's strange that Zhu Yai stood in the corner. It seemed as if he didn't hear her speaking. Cousin only thought she was upset because of her daughter-in-law. Was kicked out. Unwilling to speak. He didn't say much more. Walked past her. Such things happened often in the past. My cousin had long gotten used to it. When she got home, she told her mom about this. Zhu Yai was chased out by her daughter-in-law again. But her mom, hearing her say this, but was taken aback. "Didn't this old man go to the hospital this afternoon? It's impossible to be discharged so soon. This is strange." But she just saw it. Her mom also thought this was strange. Old Master Zhu fell down the stairs this afternoon. When being carried away, half of the face was covered in blood and bruises. It seems to be quite serious. I heard they even went to the emergency room. How could it be that you came back? Then her mother did several things for her cousin. The answers received are all affirmative. The cousin listened to her mother finish speaking. A wave of anxiety surged in my heart. Then Zhu Yai went to the hospital. Who is that at the door? Could it be her ghost? How did Zhu Yi suddenly fall? That night, my cousin was tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Even while sleeping, I keep having nightmares. The next morning, she was awakened by a sound of lament. She quickly got up and asked her mom. Her mother said with a heavy expression, "Zhu Yi has died. Moreover, it was sent to the hospital yesterday. Died in the afternoon." This made my cousin break out in a cold sweat. Suddenly it burst out. Died in the afternoon. What was seen that night? It really is the ghost of Zhu Yai. In the days following Zhu Yai's death, cousin doesn't dare to go home alone. She always calls her mom to pick her up. Until a week later. That night, my cousin gathered her courage. A person walks up the stairs. As I walked along, she felt as if someone was following her. She couldn't help but stop in her tracks, cautiously turned back to look. At first glance, it scared her so much that she almost lost her soul. Only the deceased Zhu Yai could be seen. At that moment he was right behind her, messy on the face. There are still broken teeth in the wound. Cousin was quite scared. With a slip underfoot, I toppled to the side. That big face made direct contact with the wall. Her mother must have heard the noise. Hurriedly ran down from upstairs. Ask her what happened. She cried and said she saw Zhu Yai. Her mother didn't believe it at the time. She must be seeing things. Can go back home. She suddenly realized her face hurt terribly. The next day, the pain was unbearable. Her mother brought her to the hospital. But after a thorough check, I didn't find any issues. Strangely enough, her face seemed fine at first glance, but it hurts to the core as soon as I touch it. Fortunately, her grandmother heard about it. This is to go see her at her home. It seems that it might really be old Zhu downstairs causing trouble, because the day my cousin saw old Zhu, it just happens to be her first wife. Her mother still refuses to believe, but the doctors were at their wits' end. In the end, she could only follow her mother-in-law's instructions. Brought a bowl of water and a pair of chopsticks. Her grandmother picked up the chopsticks, standing in the water, then angrily questioned, "Is it old Zhu downstairs?" It all fell onto her granddaughter. After asking, she let go of his hand. What I didn't expect was, the chopsticks stood upright in the water. Her grandmother saw this, suddenly started cursing angrily. Let her leave quickly. Stop bothering her granddaughter. Otherwise, just find someone to take care of her. The amazing thing is, after her grandmother finished scolding, the chopsticks clattered and fell down. Her mom didn't believe it at first. This time it was truly frightening. Almost lost my daughter in the excitement. Her mother-in-law saw her like this, quickly reassured her to relax. "Just let my cousin take a nap." My cousin listened attentively. I endured the excruciating pain and lay down on the bed, slept through the night in a daze. The next day, upon waking up, she was pleasantly surprised to discover my face actually doesn't hurt anymore. It really is miraculous. Since then, her face has improved. Aunt Zhu from downstairs, that is Zhu Yu's daughter-in-law. Every day I cover my face. It looks like it must be very painful. I don't know if she has the same symptoms. Old man's son from our village has passed away, died at the age of 73. It can be considered a natural death. In our hometown, the old man has passed 70 years old, even if it's a joyous morning. So the old man's children and grandchildren, usually they would be busy organizing, hold a grand funeral. Sun Lei Han's sons filled with sorrow. The alliance invited the famous funeral master from the village, Lindaba. Lindaba instructed a few people to follow his requests. After preparing everything needed for the funeral, but it was missing the soul concealment potion. This hidden soul potion requires 3 full years of hard work. The eldest son, Sun Zikai, searched for half a day. Couldn't find it at all. I only heard about the Zhu family in the end. Sun Zikai hurriedly went to buy some medicine. Actually, Sun Zikai felt in his heart 100 people are unwilling to deal with the Zhu couple, because this week the couple at home has been acting strangely. The villagers did not welcome them. But for my own father, Sun Zikai goes all out. Arriving at the Zhu family, he gritted his teeth and knocked open the courtyard door. The one who opened the door was Zhu Bapi. At first, they were still polite. Ki Dun Sun Zikai said, "I want to buy a hidden spirit machine from their store." Jew Bappy's face suddenly fell. "What do you mean by the family's work machine? But I've raised it for several years now." He also said that his wife has a great relationship with the machinery, reluctant to part. The implication is that they are still unwilling to give it to him. Son Zikai has no choice, still begging him persistently. This week's work machine at home. He really is quite handsome, looking energetic with heads held high. But this week, Ba Pai doesn't care about village relationships at all. Son Zikai did not expect this. In the end, there was really no other way. Spent a huge sum of 500 yuan. "I just bought that work machine from Ba Pai this week. What are you reluctant to part with?" Actually, the money hasn't come through yet. No matter what, the funeral was held smoothly. The day of the burial soon arrived. Son Zikai held the labor machine that he had bought for a huge sum, walking at the front of the line, in the sound of the mournful rat calls. A group of people weep as they walk towards the cemetery on the western hill. Varied. Master Lin walked over to remind Son Zikai. It's time to kill the shadow spirit machine and send his father on his way. Son Zikai finally stood up. I looked under the tree by the graveyard, but suddenly became dumbfounded. Originally tied to the big tree, the worker machine, it actually disappeared. This is a problem now. Master Lin's face also darkened upon hearing this. This hidden soul device draws the spirits of the deceased out of their homes, after the deceased's body was laid to rest, leading the deceased to the Yellow Springs Road. That's how it is said. Everyone shouldn't make claims without knowing whether they are true or false. Even if selling oneself, one must find the right choice. There's no way. The crowd still descended the mountain. They each went home. Master Lin on the mountain side just told his disciple, "This hidden soul machine is immortal. The soul of the machine can no longer leave. The spirit of old man's son. It will always follow the working machine. I don't know where to go. It may turn into a wandering ghost. But the Sun family members have not passed away. The master and apprentice had no way out. This matter has passed just like that. But that very night, the Zhu family encountered trouble. During the day, Zhu Bapi fiercely hit Sun Zekai's main position. After the couple had a few drinks, excited and didn't sleep until very late. Just lay down. A strange sound suddenly echoed through the courtyard. At first, I thought it was the wind. If you listen closely, only then did I realize it was the sound of the machine flapping its wings. Zhu Bapi quickly turned over and sat up, put on her clothes and walked outside. Can this machine that was sold come back? But during the day, he also heard the sound of the wind. That old man's son's machine failed to kill, so they ran away. Zhu Bapi was shining a flashlight and arrived in the yard to search carefully. His wife heard the noise and ran out. When the two arrived at the hangar, my heart is filled with joy. The work machine really ran back by itself. Now the couple's hearts, it's truly delightful. This money has also been earned. The machine is back. Where can you find such a good thing? But he also knows. This work machine can't be kept. We need to hide quickly. If the Sun family comes knocking at the door, this will be troublesome. So Zhu Bapi quickly called for his wife. Go catch the opportunity with him. Thinking about taking it to the market tomorrow to sell it. Called out twice in succession. His wife didn't react at all. He turned his head. He suddenly realized something was off with his wife. He just wanted to go over and pull her. His wife pushed him away with a forceful shove. A person walked slowly towards the work machine with blank eyes. It looks like they've completely changed as a person. It's strange to say. The part-time job that is usually hard for two people to secure. This time I stood still without moving. Jubapi called him a couple of times from behind. His wife didn't care at all. He took down the work machine. Then, with both hands, he pulled hard. It violently tore the machine in half. The blood immediately splattered everywhere. Jubapi watched this scene, frightened quite a bit, looking at my wife covered in blood in front of me. Jubapi took a long time to react. A few minutes later, his wife seemed completely drained. My legs went weak, bounced to the ground. At that moment, Jubapi was shocked to discover it seems there is a shadow of an old man floated out from his wife's body, and that machine also became a vague shadow, carrying the elderly, drifting towards the west wall. Wait until those two shadows have completely dissipated. Jubapi finally dared to face his wife, help her up. After a few days, his wife recovered from her illness. Nothing major happened either. He later spoke to the villagers about this matter. Everyone found it incredibly unbelievable. However, the elders in the village all understand. That was old man's son who borrowed his wife's hand to kill that chicken. This way, his soul is released. Successfully followed that big rooster to the road of the underworld. The deceased suddenly sat up. From then on, their temperament changed drastically. It felt like I had become a different person. What on earth is going on? This incident happened in a small village in Longjing City, Jilin Province. There is a family with the surname Chan in the village. Early that morning, the neighbors gathered at his door. Listening to them argue felt like listening to a joke. The man of this family, Chan Lao is honestly a good man, honest and straightforward. I don't know what kind of karma I have created. Married a shrewish wife. Since marrying him, this house has a big argument every 3 days and a small one every 2 days. Silence cannot help others. Finally, Uncle Tian's fourth aunt couldn't stand it any longer. He walked over and knocked on his door. Two people are arguing fiercely. I didn't hear anything at all. Aunt C pushed the door and walked in. Chan Layar heard fourth aunt calling him, hurriedly walked out of the house. But his wife kept pulling at him relentlessly. He needs to clarify. Which family's vixen is it? Aunt C looked at Tian Lao Er's face, scratched by his wife. Suddenly I felt that he deserved it. Lao, in terms of emotions, does not keep himself in check, flirting around outside. No wonder his wife Kui Hua is causing a scene with him. Tian Lao encountered the same gaze as Si Shen. I really can't hold it in anymore. He forcefully shook off Kui Hua's hand, unexpectedly exerting too much effort. Kui Hua was thrown far away by him, slammed hard onto the ground. Kui Hua's temper was originally not good. Suddenly, they pointed at Chan Lao and began to curse loudly. What sounds ugly is what gets cursed. Aunt C saw Kui Hua like this. Quickly pushed Chan Lao outside. She thought about having him stay at his brother and sister-in-law's house for a couple of days. Deng Kui Hua has disappeared and will return again. But Kui Hua is not someone to be underestimated. He got up from the ground and rushed over. He grabbed onto Chan Lao absolutely won't let him leave. Aunt C couldn't help but feel a sense of concern for him. Holding on to Tian Lao he left without looking back. Behind him, Kui Hua was still cursing incessantly. If today Tian Layar leaves, he'll die to show him. Hearing this, Tian Layar felt like his ears were going to develop calluses. So he followed fourth aunt without looking back. This made Kui Hua feel an inexplicable anger. It suddenly burst up, threatened to die right in front of him. Moreover, Tian Layar didn't go to his brother's place when he went out, but went to his cousin Lai Dazhuang's house. Cousin has always been very good to him since childhood. Seeing him like this, he said nothing. He arranged a table full of fine food and drinks. Accompany him to drink. A few cups of wine are poisoned. Tian Lao are instantly transformed into a resentful woman, constantly pouring out bitterness. Hui used to be quite a nice girl. Getting married is like becoming a different person. Not only did they kick his parents out, but my brother and sister-in-law are making things difficult for everyone. Daxuang listened to him finish speaking. I can only comfort him to take things lightly. Living together as a couple, there's always a bit of friction that needs to be smoothed out. As the two people chatted on, before long he was so drunk that he lost consciousness. Until almost midnight. Tian Layar slowly woke up, thinking that it's already past noon. Hui's anger should have subsided by now. Farewell to my cousin. He staggered home, still thinking about going back to comfort him. This matter has passed. Thinking all the way, before long we arrived home. He quickly put on a smile. While pushing the fate, they shouted, "Wife, I'm back." Little did he know, before he could even enter. Just stood there in shock. My mind went blank, buzzing continuously. At that moment, Hui was hanging straight from the beam, mouth wide open. The eyeballs are also rolling outward. The face has turned purple. That area is still quite wet. That was really terrifying. Tian Layar didn't dare to look closely again. Stunned for a long time. Just took Hui down from above. He placed her onto the kang, constantly repenting and blaming oneself. I hope she can wake up. But he understood that all of this was impossible now. Hui's body didn't know how long it had been falling. It has long since cooled down. Such a thing happened. Tian Lao didn't dare to hide it from Hui's parents either. Call them all over. Indeed, Hui's parents have arrived. She started to curse at him furiously. He must return his daughter's life. Cursing fiercely also led to losing reason. Facing Tian Lao I struck left and right. Gave a big slap in the face. Tian Lao from Jai Shan had blood at the corners of his mouth, but refused to stop. The neighbor heard something unusual and rushed over, advising gently, "If you keep hitting, someone will end up dead." As soon as I heard about a life being lost, Hui's father was even more furious. Grabbed Tian Lao's collar. Then they called out again, just as everyone was arguing heatedly. A woman's voice came from behind. Immediately, everyone stopped. "What are you all doing?" Everyone heard this voice. Quickly turned to look back. Hui, who had already gone cold, appeared. At that moment, he suddenly sat up. But strangely, she seems unfamiliar with the people around her. A face full of terror. Hui's mother saw her daughter come back to life again. My heart was filled with joy. Rushed over. Strangely, Hui didn't recognize them. Still claiming that you're not Hui. They mistook the person. Hui's mother felt her heart shatter upon hearing this. "I can't believe my daughter is involved in this mess. Are you out of your mind?" Hui looked at the two elders in front of her. Very uncomfortable. Frantically broke free from his mother's grasp. "Just walk out." Continuously insisting that she is not Hui. Her name is Zhu Mei. She also mentioned her home address. I don't know them at all. The people behind did not understand. What is going on here? He just stared blankly at her as she walked out the door. The dead daughter suddenly comes back to life, but no longer recognize them. Don't even mention how hard it is for Hui's mom. Soon Hui's death and resurrection. It spread throughout the village. Everyone initially found it very curious. Every day someone goes to see her. As time goes by, Everyone has noticed this Kuehua. In addition to becoming more composed than before, there's nothing particularly special about it. But for old Tian, it's completely different when it comes to the second one, this magnificent Kuehua. Besides saying I want to go home every day, there's nothing else wrong. Not only does she tidy up the house every day and quietly understands her pain, he also said he would live a good life with her. Jian Liar also felt that the resurrection through borrowing a corpse is truly unbelievable. But now this wife has become like this. She was also very willing in her heart. As time goes by, she also can't stand Zhu Mei. Every day I feel anxious and restless, and I also want to face it head on. Did she really come back to life? So I found an opportunity. The two of them got into the car heading back to Zhu Mei's home. Yu Mei was very excited all the way. Look at her appearance. She seems very familiar with this place. Soon Zhu Mei relied on her memory, arriving in front of a dilapidated house. I walked around the house several times but didn't see anyone. Zhu Mei immediately started to sob. It seems her parents are no longer alive. Seeing her tears flow like a spring, Tian Lao felt a surge of heartache. Hastily walked over to comfort softly. After a while, the two people arrived on the street. Zhu Mei warmly greeted the villagers around her, but everyone found it very strange. How could this woman from out of town know them? After Dong, Zhu Mei explained the situation to everyone. The villagers found it very incredible. Isn't this woman just like Zhu Mei, who has been dead for many years? The villagers told her. Her parents passed away a few years ago. According to what the villagers said, the two soon arrived at Zhu Mei's parents' grave. Zhu Mei knelt on the ground, crying out about their own experiences. Defeated, the two of them returned home. From then on, life only got better. This man ate the heart of a bear and the liver of a leper. How dare one attempt to steal the luminous pearl from the lips of a 1,000-year-old poem? I didn't expect to get so excited. I even forgot to wear gloves. This is terrible now. This incident happened in the 1990s. In a small village in Payan City, Henan Province, old Chen from the village went to work in the fields as usual. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the grass nearby, caught his attention. This early morning, how could someone be in the grass? He hurried over. I pulled aside the grass to take a look. I found a man lying on the grass. At this moment, a faint sound escaped the man's mouth. It looks like they are injured. Old Chen didn't dare to be negligent. A ladle of water was poured down. The man moves leisurely. At that moment, a few villagers came over to join the crowd. The man opened his eyes and looked. They realized it was them who saved themselves. Seeing their puzzled expressions, the man did not hide anything either. He began to recount his strange experiences. The man's name is Liu, is following his uncle. Came to this place to rob tombs. Last night, the two of them were drawn to an ancient tomb nearby. Taking advantage of the darkness, they started digging a hole. You don't say. The two people only took a few hours. They dug out a tunnel. A tomb has been discovered. So the two of them eagerly followed the path through the cave, crawling into the ancient tomb. But the current situation still leaves the two with a bit of disappointment. Inside, there was only a room that looked like a brick kiln. There is nothing special. The two of them looked around cautiously. I just hope for a little unexpected surprise. At that moment, Liu keenly spotted a coffin placed in the corner. The two people were very excited to see the coffin. In those years, the antique market was booming. There might be valuable treasures inside. So the two of them didn't hesitate. quickly took out the prepared crowbar, prepare to pry it open. As the creaking sound approached, the coffin lid was pried open a crack. Suddenly, several wisps of white smoke emerged. It seems to be well sealed inside. Everyone in this line of work knows that this smoke might be toxic. So when the smoke finally cleared, two people dared to approach cautiously. Peeking inside, the two of them were suddenly overjoyed. Inside the coffin, there were many burial items. Huang Jinyu is a type of agate. Liu Er quickly took out these things. But suddenly they realized this corpse hasn't decayed at all. This indicates that he surely has beads in his mouth. At that time, he didn't care much about it. Just thinking about having beads. Just a moment of excitement. He walked over and pried open the corpse's mouth with his hand. I didn't expect to actually pull out a very large pearl from inside. Liu Er raised the bead and examined it closely under the light. Ask him if his uncle is worth quite a bit of money. Little did he know that his uncle, upon seeing his hand, instantly turned pale with fright, trembled and asked, "Where are your gloves?" This is when he finally realized. He went to get the beads at that time. I didn't even bring gloves. This is terrible now. As the two turned around to look, sure enough, they saw the body in the coffin. Unknowingly, at some point, surprisingly, he sat up by himself. His uncle shouted, just thinking about running away. But at that time, the legs of both of them wouldn't listen at all. The corpse was now right in front of me. His uncle reacted quickly and gave him a strong push. Let him run faster. Only then did he become aware. The alliance scrambled chaotically in the direction of the tunnel. But not long after, behind him came the heart-wrenching voice of his uncle. He turned his head and looked, but found the blown-up corpse. At this moment he had arrived behind his uncle. A hand pierced through his chest in an instant. He grabbed his uncle's heart, put it in his mouth, and started chewing. The sound made his scalp tingle. He knows that if he doesn't leave soon, he will also become like that. Can't afford to be sad. He ran outside as if he had gone mad. Finally, he crawled out of that hole. Didn't expect to run in such a panic, not choosing a path. Suddenly tripped over a stone. Fainted. Everyone listened to Liu Er's words. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. He doesn't look like he's lying. Later, I don't know who called the police. Liu Er was quickly taken away by the police. It is said that the police really found a tunnel in that place. Liu Er was also sentenced for tomb raiding. But strangely enough, they did not find his uncle's body in the ancient tomb. And the zombie he mentioned, it was said that it was discovered half a month later. At that time, I was lying in a nearby village, in the haystack of the suspicious person. This thing exudes a sense of evil. The villagers feared he would come out at night to harm people. So they tied him to the wood and burned him. It is said that it took a long time to burn him to ashes. A pungent stench could be smelled from a distance. Of course, these are all rumors. I don't even know if it's true or not. The old bachelor in the village wanted to go to the city, find a beautiful girl to be my wife, cut off the village's Buddha head, getting ready to exchange it for some cash. I didn't expect to not get my wife back. I can't believe I've become like this. This incident took place in Yibin City, Sichuan, in 1997. In a small village in Zhenlian County, a young man with the surname Liang in the village bought a van, usually running some business in town. That day he received a shipment from Yidden at the long-distance bus station. The person lifted a large box that looked very heavy. Xiao Liang thought to help him out. He walked over to prepare to pick up the box. But that person kept saying no need. Xiao Yang thought he was being polite to himself, so I took the initiative to help him lift it up. Unexpectedly, that person suddenly pried open Xiao Yang's hand. Her expression was still a bit flustered. This left Xiao Yang feeling both awkward and bewildered. "If you don't want to help, then fine." The man put in a lot of effort to load the items onto the truck. Xiao Yang didn't mind either. He started the car and rushed to the station. The two people in the car did not exchange much. The man kept staring at his suitcase the entire way, afraid of making any mistakes. "It seems that there is something valuable in that box." Xiao Yang didn't pay any attention either. Turning my head, I focused on driving. Not long after, strange things started to happen. Suddenly, a piece of red cloth floated in from nowhere. The snowflakes were gently falling on the windshield ahead, blocking Xiao Yang's line of sight completely. I can't see the road ahead at all. And what's even stranger is, the brakes suddenly failed at this moment. Just for a moment, Xiao Yang's car drove far away, suddenly crashed into a big tree by the roadside. The car was left in a terrible state after the crash. After a little while, Xiao Yang wakes up again, but the man behind. It's not that lucky. The man wasn't wearing his seatbelt. His head hit the car window directly. The sharp glass pierced his throat. Died on the spot. See this? Xiao Yang fainted again from fear. Xiao Yang is really unfortunate. Not only couldn't we keep the car, you may still face hefty compensation. Later, he found out. All of this, it's all related to the suitcase that man is carrying. 3 days ago in the early morning, fourth uncle, who is accustomed to getting up early in the village, passing by the old temple behind the village by chance, surprisingly, I found someone using a saw, rejecting the Buddha statue's head. Fourth uncle took a closer look. Huda, the notorious lazy man of the village. This guy is usually lazy and gluttonous, neglecting one's proper duties. I didn't expect to be so bewitched this time. They actually set their sights on the Buddha. Fourth uncle was furious at that moment, quickly ran up to stop him. But what he didn't expect was, there is still one hidden behind the door, the man wearing glasses. As soon as he entered, the person quietly appeared behind him. He was knocked unconscious to the ground with a stick. At this point, it's too late to stop. The Buddha head has already been taken by Hu Da. Wait until Uncle C wakes up before finding Hu Dash. But he found himself curled up in the corner, continuously begging for mercy. It was as if they had completely transformed into another person. Uncle C shook his head and went home. I didn't expect something to happen that night. Hu Da's father got up at night. Hu Da was found dead in his home. He nearly cut off his entire head with a sickle. The Buddha head was finally found on Xiao Yang's car. Uncle C quickly brought him back. It was again placed onto the statue of the Buddha in the old temple. Later, they also brought in a craftsman. The old temple was slightly renovated. I hope it doesn't affect others. Do you believe there are ghosts in this world? The man in front of me not only said that there are ghosts in this world, he also said that after his death, he would go to the underworld to become a city god. This incident happened in 1995 in a small village in Shankyu City, Henan. At that time, the trend of going to the city for work had not yet emerged. So every household has a few strong but useless elderly men at home. As soon as night fell, the idle villagers enjoyed gathering together, bragging, drinking, and playing cards. Life can be considered leisurely and carefree, especially a person with discerning lie in the village. He is someone who can't stay idle. Wherever it's lively, that's where I go. One day it is said that Old Lai is at old Wang's house at the village entrance, playing Du Dai Ju with Lang Zai and Gu Dan from the village. I don't know how it happened. That day his luck was surprisingly good. Every hand is a good hand. It made the two people playing with him feel awkward. It was a humiliating defeat. Feeling cold sweat all over, I just wanted to leave quickly. It seems that scrubbing the washboard is unavoidable tonight. But old Lai only wins back money every few days. How could they easily let them go? The sky is about to darken. We agreed to finish the last round and then go home. The last round had no suspense. Old Lai still wins. Old Lai was overjoyed. He stretched out his arm and urged them to hurry and pay. But just at that moment, old Lai suddenly stiffened, then trembled uncontrollably all over, rolling eyes up to the sky. The body tilted and fell onto the table. Then you won't be conscious of anything. This scene terrified everyone around. Is this person not the style of Yang Dianfang? It doesn't seem like that's the case for him. Lai Gu from the village. I was standing right behind old Lai watching. Seeing this situation was quite shocking. Quickly called to find the village's barefoot doctor. But old Wand is not in a hurry at all. Let everyone relax. He will wake up by himself soon. It seems he has already gotten used to it. Because he is close to old Lai, I've long been used to this flaw of his. Moreover, he has had this flaw for a long time, often just feeling dizzy, no matter where it is. But soon it can wake up again. And at this moment, he keeps saying that after he fainted, he went to catch the dead. All day long, you just know how to brag. Before Lao Wang could finish speaking, old Lai indeed woke up. Old Wang saw that he was awake. He jokingly asked him which village he had gone to catch someone again. Old Lai was not happy to hear this. How many times do I have to say it for you to believe me? Everyone's dead this time. It's fine to tell you all. I just went to catch Lai Wenzhong from the neighboring village. He raised his hand and saw. Lao Wang still refused to believe what he said. Lai Ergu felt a sense of relief in his heart after listening. Lai Wenzhong is from their village. A few days ago, I fell onto the bed. It's about to be over. Is everything old Lai said true? No one else believes it. Lai Ergu has been interested in these matters since childhood. As soon as old Lai leaves, he quickly followed and called out to him, continuously getting close to him. You know what? These two families actually have some connections. Since we are relatives, it wasn't so much of a rejection anymore. Old Lai is also a very talkative person. The two people were chatting. I arrived at the small tavern at the village entrance. Regret meeting too late. Ordered 2 small dishes. Drank some alcohol. A few drinks down. The two began to chat about everything under the sun. Let's talk about something trivial. It seemed that the conversation was coming to an end. Lai Ergu then opened his mouth. It leads back to what just happened. I want to hear what happened after old Lai fainted. Removing the misfortunes of the dark, old Lai drank a couple more cups this time. There's no one to guard the mouth. Just laid everything out in detail. When he was young, I accidentally saved one. The big black bobcat that fell into the trap. I initially thought it was nothing. I never expected that big black cat. That night, he was given a dream. He is the death god of the underworld. To express my gratitude to him, he arranged for him to become the city god of this area. Wait until his lifespan is up, then go save people. Lai Ergu saw him open his mouth to speak. Quickly take advantage and pursue the victory. He was asked about the details of capturing people. Lao Lai probably really drank too much. He said vaguely, "Every time I faint, You will feel your soul leaving your body. Then, in a drifting manner, set off towards the destination. The speed is very fast. No one can see it either. Along the way, there will be two shadows resembling a bull-headed, horse-faced figure. Follow yourself. By the time he caught the person, hand the person over to them. It can be considered that Ren has completed it. The old man we caught tonight has reached the end of his lifespan, so it was easy to catch them. Lai Ergu listened to him finish speaking. It still doesn't feel sincere enough, deliberately speaking in a motivational tone. It's about the city god and the ox head and horse face. Is it possible that they are deliberately teasing him? Old Lai felt uneasy upon hearing that. He took out a small notebook from his pocket. It is written here that all of this belongs to the people of Jiang Temple. Make sure to keep it a secret from Lai Ergu. After speaking, he lay down on the table and fell asleep. Lai Ergu quickly grabbed the notebook stealthily. Look through it carefully. I found many addresses and names recorded inside. There are many he doesn't know, but he still has a slight impression of it. While he was watching with great interest, old Lai suddenly woke up. She shouted at him, "I can't show it to you. This will reveal the secrets of heaven. I'm in big trouble." After speaking, he collapsed onto the table and fell asleep. Lai Ergu yelled just now. Startled, my hand trembled. The booklet fell into the soup bowl in front of me. This time, taking advantage of old Lai's sleep, he picked it up again and secretly took a look. But at that moment, the writing above, because of the soup, it gradually became invisible. Lai Ergu then proceeded cautiously. Put the notebook back together for old Lai. Pretend to know nothing. Helped him to his home. And so more than 10 days passed. Lai Ergu arrived again at old Lai's village. Old Lai, who usually loves to join in the fun, "Why aren't you here?" I casually asked a question. Unexpectedly, when old Wang heard this, he said with a look of regret, "Oh, don't mention it. That guy went crazy for some reason, catching children in the village all day long. You said that usually a person is fine. How to say crazy just went crazy. Since the last time I fainted and left. After returning home, I went crazy after being sick for 2 days." Lai Ergu listened to this, feeling a bit anxious inside. Old Lai hurriedly turned around and searched the whole village. He faintly felt that old Lai had changed like this now. It definitely has to do with seeing his little notebook, because he had gone back to study it carefully himself. The few people I know written in that notebook, they all died in these few days. He thought of that time as well. Old Lai is the city god of this area. Lai Ergu found him at the back wall of old Lai's house. He really doesn't look normal at all now. This must be the punishment for revealing the secrets of heaven. Lai Ergu looked at his appearance. I feel guilty inside. From then on, I often went to see him. Every time, bring him some braised meat and liquor. Lao Lai died 5 years later. He suddenly became very clear-headed when he died. I'm going to the underworld to become the city god now. No one in the village believes him. Only Lai Ergu believes. He probably really went to become the city god. Maybe until the day I die. Will I be able to see him again? This man only spoke a few words to this group of people. The next day, something went wrong. What is going on? This is an incident that happened to my classmate Lai Zongbin. His family lives in a small village in Seju, Jiangsu province. That year, he had summer vacation. Because I was too lazy to go get a summer job, ran back home. What puzzled him was, it was already past 8 o'clock when I got home. There shouldn't be nobody here. Just as we were approaching the front door, he just discovered something. Every household has its doors tightly shut. There was still a circle of paper ash scattered at the entrance. He had a clear idea in his mind at that moment. This has happened before. If someone in the village dies unjustly, it will turn out like this. No one dares to come out, because there are even stranger things to come, although he doesn't believe in these. But I always feel a chill in my heart. At that time, he didn't dare to linger too long, so I ran all the way home. When he got home, his father nervously pulled him into the house. Remind him not to run around these days. They said that Granny Chen from their village has passed away. Died in a very frightening way. Just 2 days ago. Grandma went to the town to buy groceries. When crossing the street, a small truck came rushing toward him. Grandma didn't make a sound. Died on the spot. That scene made everyone's scalp tingle. The most frightening thing is, Grandma Chen remained unable to close her eyes even in death. Everyone in the village knows. This is a strong manifestation of resentment. Later, the Chen family quickly found a master. They said that Grandma's life was not yet over when she suddenly died unexpectedly, unable to swallow that anger. So the Chen family found a few people to carry Yin Guan. I've been wandering around the neighborhood these nights. Tell him not to go out tonight. My classmate had already lost interest after hearing that. Just like how he reads books. Always a 3-minute enthusiasm. Otherwise, you wouldn't be like me. I didn't get into a good university. His father looked at him like this. Lima shouted over. Little brat, be more careful. This is not a joke. Chen Shenki Fan was the first to return to the house. I haven't washed up and fell asleep early. That night I had a strange dream, dreaming of him walking alone in the alley. Can't find a way out. He didn't care. The next day I opened my eyes and ran to find my classmates. Crazy for an entire day. It was after 9 o'clock at night. Reluctantly, they each returned home. At this moment, a person. He remembered what his father said yesterday about the Taiyin Pass. Feeling a bit anxious inside. Afraid to encounter those few people. What you fear most is what will come. As he just turned into the alley, a strange sound came from behind. He couldn't help but turn his head to take a look. 4 oddly dressed people carrying a paper-crafted coffin. He walked towards him. He understood that he had encountered the Taiyin Pass. Immediately scared to the point of being unable to move. The few people looked at him alone. Lai Ma's eyes lit up as she walked over to talk to him. But after all, he is one of us. No matter what, I know the rules here. This must not be spoken. And he doesn't know these few people. No desire to speak anymore. But those few people kept asking him questions. It also made him a bit anxious. Just about to speak. A young man suddenly rushed out from behind, holding a camera. It looks like they are traveling over there. I like to capture anything new and interesting I come across. That person didn't know the power of this thing. She actually took the initiative to chat with them. Those people have been carrying for several days. I'm tired too. Finally, someone is willing to speak. Immediately, they couldn't stop smiling. Lai Zongbing just wanted to reach out and stop the young man, the big man behind. Lai Ma looked at him with a sinister expression. That kind of gaze sends chills down one's spine. He knows people who do the street hustle. They are not good-hearted men. He had no choice but to keep his mouth shut. Returned home dejectedly. The young man behind kept asking questions left and right. Those who carried the coffin probably did it on purpose. While answering questions, adjusting the position of the coffin, facing the young man directly. He returned home very late. Once again, he was scolded by his father. He also didn't dare to mention what happened at night. Wait until the next day to wake up. He heard the shocking news that left him speechless. The young man died last night. Died the same way as Grandma Chen. They were also killed in a car accident. That night he found a hotel to stay in. Just this morning I stepped out after checking out and hadn't even gone 5 meters. Was struck by a garbage truck. Trapped under the car. Died on the spot. Generally, these types of cars drive slowly. That day somehow got out of control. At that time, after hearing his parents speak, I also feel very guilty. If only I had stopped him last night. He estimated that there wouldn't be any problems. But if we stop them, maybe it's him who will get into trouble. This time, he finally understood fear. Later, he found out. Those people would greet others they encountered. But as soon as that person agrees, the resentment of the dead will transfer to that person. It could lead to years of bad luck. It could be life-threatening. Never offend a folk carpenter. Otherwise, you might get into big trouble. This event took place in a small village in Nanyang, Henan. Old Zhang in the village is a famous carpenter in the area. Lao Zhang's skills are exceptional. Naturally, there will be many people looking for him. On that day, Liu Fui from the village found him, let him build a new house. The price that Liu Fui offered is actually quite high, but old Zhang really felt uncertain in his heart. Who is Liu Fui? Usually, I've done quite a few bad things. Known for being untrustworthy. In the past 2 years, I have taken over the vegetable market at the west end of the village. Having made money, the person became increasingly aloof. Although Lao Zhang felt uncertain in his heart, but after all, it is one village. It's also not good to offend. Moreover, Liu Fui kept making guarantees. They said they would never delay payment for wages. This job has been taken on. The next day, old Zhang gathered everyone he needed. Let's get to work. A couple of days later, the main wall has risen to over half a person's height. This job is done quite well. Up the people under old Zhang. It's all quite frustrating. I've never seen such a stingy employer. Which houses did you repair in the past? Which family is not being served with lavish food? When it comes to Liu Fui here, not talking about the smoke or the tea, what is this food we eat every noon? Just a few plates of wilted vegetable leaves were enough to dismiss them. At first, everyone thought that Liu Fui is so wealthy. It should be better than other families, right? I didn't expect that after a few days. Every day is like the leftover wilted vegetable leaves from the market. This made Lao Zhang feel very embarrassed. After all, this job was contracted by him. Moreover, everyone is doing heavy physical labor, eating nothing but plain food every day. Who can withstand it? He knew that Liu Fui was pretending to be deaf and mute on purpose. How could he not understand these? A few days later, the days of autumn are approaching. On this day, according to the rules, the host family needs to prepare 8 dishes and 8 bowls for a proper feast. When encountering someone particular, they would give the masters a big red envelope. I can't stand my brothers complaining non-stop. This day, old Zhang found Liu Fui. It's better to say that you don't need to give the red envelope. But can the lunch be arranged better for the staff? I never expected that. Old Zhang had just finished speaking. Liu Fui's expression suddenly collapsed, spoke with spittle flying. But I want to give you guys your wages. I would also like to invite you all to a banquet. Who do you think you are? Lao Zhang's face turned green with anger upon hearing this. This is the rule. Why are you Liu Fui so special? Everyone started arguing upon hearing that. The alliance approached and began to criticize Liu Fugui. But who is Liu Fugui? In our words, it's called green beans. Living on a shoestring budget. Immediately called for them. He has a few lackeys guarding the vegetable market for him. Those people are not from the village. Completely disregarding martial ethics. A stick came down hard on old Zhang's head. Lao Zhang has been a carpenter for over 10 years. I haven't been treated like this before. But what can he say? There are still a wife and children at home. This kind of person is not to be trifled with. But he already had a plan in mind. Gong Yu saw that old Zhang was injured. I didn't dare to say anything more. Helped him to the village clinic. Just a simple bandage. It was noon. Just holding back all the frustration and returning. Get ready to collect the grain. Otherwise, with Liu Fugui's dog-like character, maybe they won't pay a single cent for the work later. Wait until the frame is set up. Lao Zhang climbed up the ladder. Go up to face the wind. Gong Yu saw him like this.